In this module, we're going to start to put everything that we've learned up to this point together into a process that's going to allow you to learn how to plan your vision and decision making on any given pass play, any playbook at any level. And so here's where we start to get the fun part of R4 and really unlocking the power of it within you. And so whenever we look at a pass play, we have to understand the timeline constraints that are presented to us. So again, every pass play has a specific timeline it has to operate within. Remember, what dictates the timeline? It's your drop. So you have to learn how to select the proper drop that fits within the routes that are presented to you. And then the defense also will impact the timeline based on the coverage and the front and the blitz that they're showing to you. So again, we're going to use, for the sake of this teaching here of just putting everything together, we're going to use a standard intermediate pass play timeline. So, and we're also going to use a standard defense that's dropping into zone coverage. So again, in zone coverage, you have about 3 seconds of time in a perfect world. So we're going to operate within that timeline here to teach how we put all this together. All right. So again, the ball is snapped. We start the clock. What you need to understand as a quarterback is that you have from 0 to 1.8 seconds to evaluate the rhythm route space. Okay, so that's what we're looking at first. So we have to confirm the rhythm route space as fast as possible. All right, and so we have to know at what point do I have to confirm if the rhythm route space is capped or uncapped. It's around 1.5 seconds. That's what we call, okay, the cap confirmation. The first cap confirmation occurs at 1.5 seconds. That's the second to last step of the drop. Okay, second to last step of drop. So that's something that you can feel within your body. You can feel when that crossover step occurs just before the top of the drop. That's the trigger for you to make the decision on a rip call that I'm throwing this rhythm, or that is a cap call. I'm resetting to my next route within the progression, which would be the read route. Okay, so that's probably the most important part to master as a quarterback, is to understand, okay, what to look at within that 0 to 1.5 second time frame. I'm processing cushion or collision. It has to be one or the other. And then the final process is the cap. All right, his coverage, his hip angle, his personnel ability. So those are what we call the accelerators, right? So you know what to look for now. You know the secret, okay, to understanding how to accelerate decision making, what matters most. It doesn't really matter the coverage, it matters what the cap is and what they're playing, the cushion or collision levels we're playing with. So you have to learn how to process those within that 0 to 1.5 second timeline. All right, now, if your rhythm route is capped and you confirm it's capped on the second to last step, your eyes are now moving to the next route in the progression, which would be a read route. So you want to find a route that attacks intermediate space on this particular play, and that would be the read route. Read routes take longer to develop. If I get to the read route space with my eyes and I confirm that that is capped, I'm now going to a rush route. Right? I'm looking for the rush route as a check now. Right? If the rush route is capped, my timeline is starting to expire from the pocket integrity. Protection's probably breaking down. So now I have to extend the timeline and I have to go into my release phase. What does release mean? It's your gap escape. We talked about the different gap escapes you have to be able to use as a quarterback. Okay, the release phase is all those families of gap escapes that we talked about in previous lessons. So this is where I would use. These become now another route family, essentially. So gap escapes extend the timeline. So now I have to start the timeline, the process over again, get out of the pocket, and reestablish my routes as scramble rules. All right. So again, that's the rhythm read rush release sequence that you can apply to any pass play, any level. So now as a quarterback, you can drop back or you can open up any playbook and you should know how to plan a scan that corresponds with the DNA of routes, the timeline that you're using, and be right every time. You have a why now, and you know when to get there because you understand the DNA, the little tiny things that matter most within the game of football. So now let's look at a pass play. So again, let's practice here, planning scans and just drawing up any kind of route sequence we want and planning a scan based on the R4 process. All right, so I'll just draw up routes. So let's draw a skinny 7-step post here by the X. Let's do a 12-yard dig by the H there. Let's put the Y on a shallow. Let's put the Z on a 14-yard comeback. And let's play fake the tailbacker across and have him run a check down flat there. All right, so I have 5 routes drawn on the screen. Now you tell me which route you're going to look at first. Well, let's go back to the R4 process. The rhythm route family is the route family I would like to look at first because it attacks vertically. I always want to have a vertical option if possible. And it breaks open in 1.8 seconds or less. So do I have a rhythm route that attacks vertical here? Oh, yeah, I have a rhythm post. All right, so that would be my rhythm route. That would be the first option in my progression. That would be the route space I want to evaluate on the drop. Now, if I drop back and I'm on the second to last step and I can feel that that is capped, whether it be collision, whether it be cushion, or whether it be the dominant hit position of the safety or corner, I now reset to a read route. Well, do I have a read route on the page? I have 2. I have the dig. That's a read route. Okay, I also have a comeback. That's a read route. It probably makes more sense for the sake of my scan to go ahead and work to the dig because it's closer to the rhythm post. Doesn't mean I can't go to the comeback. You absolutely can. That's the beauty of R4, right? You can still reset to the comeback and you can still be at the break point with the throw. But in this case, we're going to choose the dig because it's closer to the post. If that is capped, I'm now going to go to my rush route. I have 2. I have a check down with the tailback on a flat to the boundary, and I have a shallow route coming back to the field. Probably makes sense to go to the shallow since it's closer to the dig. So that's my rush route. If that is capped, then now what am I doing? Well, what do we say? It's rhythm, read, rush, release. At this point, if I go through 1, 2, 3 scans, and each scan is tied to the top of my drop into 2 resets in the pocket, remember, the integrity of the protection is probably breaking down at this point. So I have to have an innate ability to feel if I hit 2 resets in the pocket, I got to get out, I've got to release. So where do I want to release to? I can release any way I want, but remember we talked about what are defenders doing when you're dropping back and looking to the right here? The linebackers and safeties and corners are moving in that direction. So you're creating backdoor escape lanes that are favorable to you. So you want to plan a backdoor escape release strategy if possible. All right, so again, we're planning that. So as a quarterback now, we just drew up a random play. And now we went through the R4 rules, and now you understand how to read, okay, this play much better because it falls into the DNA of routes breaks, and it ties in with your feet, and you're going to be able to manipulate all of these routes with your vision and decision because you know how to accelerate your decision because you know what to look for. You're not going to lock up with different defensive movements or confusion because you know what matters most. So that's one example of how to use the R4 process with a standard play. Let's go more in depth now and talk about other things that we can do now that we understand the base construction of the R4 system.